So Halloween's on its way, and as usual I'm doing my annual rewatch of Coraline, and it just reminded me how good this film was and how good it still is actually. I think over the years it's definitely cultivated a fan base that respects the movie. This movie came out in 2008 or 9 I think, and I remember having it on DVD. I still have it on DVD. I had the 3D version and I still watch it to this day. So in this video I basically want to say why I think this movie is such a masterpiece. If you think you like this type of content, then consider subscribing to my channel. So to start off, I think it's important to know the backstory behind the production of this film. This movie was directed by Henry Selick, known for directing again our childhood traumas like Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline and James and the Giant Peach. The studio that made this movie was Laika Studios, and fun fact, this was their first animated movie. So you get a director and a studio that are both known for making stop animation movies, and you get the masterpiece that is Coraline. And fun fact, I've been a fan of this movie for so long, and yeah, I didn't know that this movie was based on a book. But for those of you that haven't seen Coraline, first of all, why are you watching this video? Go watch it right now. But the basic premise of it is that we have Coraline, a young girl, and she's moving from her hometown to the Pink Palace, and Coraline basically has no friends. She's a newcomer to this city and her parents are really busy with work and they won't pay her no mind. I mean seriously, they're doing everything in their power to get her away from bothering them from working. And both the mom and dad's character designs reflect this so well, because the dad just looks like me after a day of work. Coraline ends up meeting a kid her own age, YB, short for Y-born, which is mad. Calling your own child Y-born is crazy work. I also know that he's an original character that was made specifically for this movie, and I think that's good because it gives Coraline someone to talk to and someone to relate to. He ends up finding this doll and giving it to Coraline, the same doll we saw in the beginning sequence of this film, which by the way, that whole sequence is just so good. When you really consider that this whole movie was made with stop animation and how long that process takes, it makes you appreciate the movie even more. Part of this movie's charm is that it is stop motion, and me personally, I don't think it would be as iconic as a movie as it was if not for stop motion, because there's so many shots in this movie that are just iconic and beautifully crafted. Alright, I'll stop glazing the animation for now, but back to the plot. So, as Coraline's exploring the Pink Palace, the movie does a really good job at showing how boring and dull this place is for kids. You know, it's raining outside, there's cockroaches in the shower. It's not good. At this point, Coraline's just doing anything in her power to get some entertainment, and that's when she stumbles on this little door. She convinces her mom to open the door, but surprise surprise, it's bricked up.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
There's nothing there. So Coraline's feeling disappointed, and what does she get to eat? Whatever this is.
What's that? What's that, brother?
I'm not gonna lie, I would never ever touch that in my life. Again, all of this setup is just building to the fact that Coraline feels disappointed in this world and that she wants more. She goes to bed with that demon doll looking at her. Could never be me. And this is where the composer of this movie score starts cooking. His name's Bruno Courlet, and he did his thing. The score makes you feel like Coraline. It feels curious and playful, but also mysterious at the same time. So as Coraline's chasing the mice, they lead her to the small door, and this is where we get the peak animation. I don't even know how they did this tunnel effect, but it's really good. And immediately as you go into the other world, you start to realise that things are way better here. Everything's colourful, everything's bright. The little boy that had his ice cream down now has his ice cream on his actual cone instead of on the floor. And this is where we get introduced to the other mother, the villain of this film. I'll talk about her more later, but needless to say, she's a very good villain. And then we meet the other dad, and he's the complete opposite of the dad in the real world. He's joyful, he's playing piano, and all I'm thinking is, if I was Coraline, I would be freaked out. Could you imagine seeing your parents with buttons for eyes? So the other mother and the other dad are inviting Coraline to eat, and all I have to say is that that food looked good. You see the comparison. In the real world, the dad was feeding them some type of mush, but in the other world, Coraline's getting fed gourmet food. They put Coraline to bed and Coraline's fiending for more. She wants to go back and I can't really blame her. And we get introduced to Mr. Bobinski, top tier character. I don't know why my man's that skinny and he can do all these flexible moves though. After teabagging her, he gives her a warning saying don't go through the little door. But does Coraline listen?
Nope.
She ends up meeting two of her other neighbours and again they tell her that she's in great danger. She runs into YB again and they have a good conversation about the doll and where he got it from. And I think this is why the director added this character in, because again it gives Coraline someone to talk to. So Coraline ends up going back to the other world and immediately the other mother's cooking up something good. This one talking about gourmet food. She tells Coraline to meet the other father in the garden and again my eyeballs are witnessing peak animation. This whole sequence is so beautiful. I'm not gonna stop praising this movie's animation because again, when you realise that everything had to be handcrafted and moved frame by frame, you really appreciate scenes like this. We then get introduced to the other YB and he doesn't talk at all and it's very sinister the way the other mother says I fixed him. The two of them end up going to the other Bobinski circus and again good animation and again Coraline is sent back to the real world wanting more. Her and her real mom end up going clothes shopping and Coraline wants a pair of gloves. By the way, $24 for a pair of gloves is mad and obviously the real mom ends up saying no because who's trying to pay $24 for a pair of gloves, and the doll in the background is seeing all of it. So the other mother knows what to get Coraline the next time she comes back into the other world, and she does exactly that. Not only does she get her clothes, she made them herself. So as you're watching this movie, you're asking, can this movie get any better? And the movie says, hold my beer. We have Keith David voicing the cat. The voice of Spawn is voicing this cat.
You probably think this world is a dream come true, but you're wrong.
And he does a great job voice acting this cat. So Coraline is headed off to the theatre performance and all I have to say is that I thought this movie was for kids. Why has this girl got a whole things just hanging out? And we get the pleasure to witness more great animation. Again, I don't know how they did the sequence where they're unzipping the skin to the younger selves, but it's peak. So as Coraline and the other YB are going back, the other mother gives a sinister smile to YB, and this is our first hint in saying something more sinister is going on. I mean obviously, but when you're a kid watching this film you don't really suspect anything. The other mother is so sinister and she's so subtle in the way she does it. When she's saying to Coraline, you can stay here if you want, but all you have to do is just sew these buttons into your eyes. And when I was a kid, I would always imagine the pain that you'd feel if that ever happened to you. And obviously Coraline says no, you man are meant to just sew buttons into my eyes. And it's at this point Coraline says, you know, I need to get out of here. I can't be in this world anymore. I want to go home. But she doesn't get to go home. The other mother is preventing her from going because she knows if she leaves, she's never coming back. So Coraline ends up confronting the other mother. And I'm not gonna lie, I would have been terrified, especially when she transformed. She ends up throwing Coraline into this prison realm and Coraline ends up finding out that she's not the only one. There were multiple children before her and she basically gets the origin story of the other mother, or the bell down as they call her. And this is where as a kid you really start to realise that damn, this movie's dark. Because could you imagine your child gets lost and the soul was eaten by this interdimensional monster? Long story short, the ghost children end up saying, listen, can you help us find our eyes? And Coraline said she'll try her best. And this is when the other YB ends up sacrificing himself to save Coraline. And rest in peace to him because we never saw him again through the whole film. So as Coraline's in the real world and she's looking for her parents, she starts to realise that they're missing, and that's when the real YB appears. And there's a deleted scene that I wish they kept, and I'm gonna show it here.
Your grandma's black, right?
Yeah.
Coraline's realised that the other mother has taken her parents and basically has them trapped in order for Coraline to come back to the other world. Even the cat knows that it's a trap, but he says you need to play her game. You need to be able to trick her in being able to release your parents. The other mother ends up eating the key so that Coraline won't be able to escape, and she's basically prisoner there until she sews the buttons. Coraline basically says, do you want to play a game? If I win, I would get to go home with my parents and the ghost children's eyes. But if you win, you get to sew buttons into my eyes and I'll basically be your prisoner forever. And we get a really cool transition between the other mother and Coraline. So as Coraline's searching through the ghost children's eyes, she remembers that she has that stone thing that the neighbours gave to her. This is where the movie really ramps up its horror aspect. And as a kid, this terrified me. When Coraline is fighting off against the other father, it's clear that he's doing it against his own will, which makes it even sadder that the other father is really a puppet to the beldame. When Coraline finds the other ghost child's eye in the theatre, that scene gave me chills. The bats in the roof looking at her. And again, when I say that they ramp up the horror aspect, they really do, because every jump scare gets me. I think the creepiest one is when Coraline has to go against the other Bibinski, and he has this very deep voice, and it appears that he's not even him anymore, he's just rats. We get more peak animation where the world starts to dissolve. I took it as the beldame's power being finite and that she can't sustain this world anymore. The next time we see the other mother, she's not even a person anymore, she's just a creature. She reminds me of a spider, which makes sense. Coraline basically has to find her parents, that's all she has to do to escape, but she knows that even if she does find her parents and wins the games fairly, the beldame won't let her go, so she has to get creative. And creative she basically says that the parents are behind the door so that she can open the door. A funny moment that I enjoyed was that Coraline basically didn't have a plan. She just threw the cat at the other mother, hoping that it would be a big enough window to escape. And when the other mother basically summons a spider web underneath Coraline, again it's peak animation. It's just very creative and it's very horrifying. I remember this scene used to give me bare anxiety. Could you imagine this thing falling on top of you? And me being terrified doesn't just stop there. Do you remember the scene where Coraline's in the tunnel and she's trying to escape and the other mother's banging on the door? That scene still terrifies me to this day. So now that Coraline's parents are released, you would think that'd be the end of it, but no. She has to destroy the key so that the beldame won't find it and be released again. So she decides to throw the key down the well at the beginning of the movie, only to realise that the other mother's hand crept through the door and it was on a mission to stop Coraline no matter what, and she almost does if it wasn't for YB stopping her. And long story short, they end up throwing the key in the well and destroying the hand, and everything ends well. Coraline learnt that she should be grateful for what she has, and the parents learned that they should spend some time with their only child. And it's not just them, the whole Pink Palace decides that they should do gardening. We even see YB's nan come back to the house. Overall, I love this film. I love that it exists. As a fan of animation, I'm just glad that this proves that no AI machine can ever replicate something like this. Let me know what you guys think of this movie, and if you liked it, please like, subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.